All right, everybody. Well, here we are doing one of our first in a series of educational videos that you can share inside your classroom or at home with your family. My name is Barb McMahon. I'm from Sprouting Chefs. And for those of you who remember, sometimes I come into your classroom and I talk to you about what seeds to plant at certain times during the year, or I come and talk to you about mindfulness. And sometimes we do some cooking together and tasting. So today I have my very great, awesome assistant, Rebecca, who's going to help me demonstrate what you can do with 5 different herbs. And all of these herbs might be growing in your garden at home or your garden at school. So I'm just going to let Rebecca introduce herself for those of you who don't know her.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. I'm sure some of you may recognize me from being in and out of your cooking classes or camps that we've done together. I'm definitely missing all of you and trying to do some cooking in my own kitchen, but looking forward to when we can all be back together in the kitchen. I work with herb at Sprouting Chefs, and I also do cooking in people's homes. So I do spend a lot of time in the kitchen, and I love trying to incorporate as many local ingredients as I can. And so I love getting to work with herbs, because I'll be talking in this about herbal medicine, which is when we get to look at all the medicinal sides to herbs and how we can incorporate them in to help with our immunity. And when colds come up and when we're moving into the winter, it's so great to have dried herbs that we can use all throughout the winter. So I'm really looking forward to this little series that we get to do.
Yay. Okay, so we're going to start with the first herb that are in some of your gardens. Now at Forest Grove, sadly, this herb has been dug out and taken a few times. Edmonds, I think, has had that happen too. But it's probably because it's a great herb, and that's rosemary. So that's in my pot right here. And you can tell that the leaves kind of look like pine needles. And this time of year, what you want to do to make sure that it grows back in the spring is to keep the base of the plant warm. And you can do that by adding some leaves or dried other dead plant material around the base so that it doesn't freeze and get too cold. It can grow really, really big into a big, huge hedge. And in the springtime, it's all these different purple flowers on it that the bees really like. So go ahead and cut a little bit off this time of year, but otherwise keep the base warm. Those are my hints for what to do in the garden.
All right. Rosemary is one of my favorite herbs to use. I love the smell when you're cooking with it. It goes super well when you heat it up with a garlic. I love adding it to roasted vegetables. I find with rosemary, you definitely want to heat it. So you want to add it into something you're cooking on the stove or with an oil, or you want to cook it in the oven with your roasted vegetables. We've done a lot of that in our cooking classes, adding it to various roasted root vegetables and potatoes. And when we're talking about it in the herbal medicine side, we look at using both the stem and the leaves. So both of those get incorporated in, which is pretty neat. Some of them only use leaves. And it's really well known for memory. So if you have a big test coming up and you're studying, we used to talk a lot about this at school, that you could keep some rosemary with you and it helps keep your memory stimulated. And then when you're in that test, it kind of brings that back, which I think is so neat.
Awesome. It's also antibacterial, right? You can rub the leaves and then rub it all over your nose.
Totally.
Yes. So keep the germs away by using rosemary. Okay, and it's an invigorating plant too. So I like to say it's great for the kindergartners and the grade 7s. The next one we have is not here as a big, large plant, but I brought a branch of it, and this is sage. So sage is another good one to have in a sensory garden. The kids love to rub the leaves to activate it and then to smell it. You can get different varieties of sage. You can get them kind of speckled. You can get them with a little bit of white variegation in there. This time of year, the plant does tend to look quite awful. It can have some dead leaves on it, and the leaves will start falling off. Don't worry about that too much. Cut back a few of the branches, use them in your cooking, or dry it. But the plant itself, as long as it's well established, is fine for the winter. Both these plants actually like good, well-drained soil. So adding some sand in there is also a good idea. If you cut the plant back too much, then what happens in the spring is it doesn't always produce those purple flowers that are really great for the bees as well. So just keep that in mind this time of year. So sage is a really other great plant to have in your school garden.
Sage, okay, I love adding sage to another great way is within your potatoes and you mash them. So I love when sage gets cooked up and it's sometimes you can even just fry the leaves and they get kind of crispy. You can crumble them over things, which is great. But in terms of with your mashed potatoes, I'll throw them right into the pot when I'm making my mashed potatoes and cooking up those potatoes and then mash them in. And they're really good. It is quite an acquired flavor, I find, with sage. So some people love it, some people aren't as into it, but it can add that nice little change of flavor from other herbs. For herbal medicine side, sage is very well known. If you start to feel that little tickle in your throat and you're getting a bit of a sore throat, it is recommended for helping to cure that and helping to kind of like soothe your throat. And so all you need to do is add the sage in with a bit of hot water and just let it infuse. Make sure when you're infusing, you keep a lid on to hold in all those volatile oils, we call them, and that's the oils that are naturally in plants. And you're going to leave those in and then, yeah, leave it for a few minutes and then take a little sip of that. Maybe add a little honey and it can be a really nice tea.
Nice. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Barb's learning stuff too today. Awesome.
I know. I learned that actually in my class. I had a sore throat and that's my herbal medicine teacher taught us that. Good to have in your back pocket.
Okay, so the next one is another really popular one in most of the gardens. It's part of the mint family, actually. So that's what I say to the kids when we're first looking at it. It grows extremely well to the point where it's almost an invasive. So you do have to be careful with this one because it is part of the mint family. But when you smell it, it smells like lemon. So this is actually lemon balm. And another way that you can identify whether or not a plant is part of the mint family is the stem is kind of shaped like a square. It's got corners on it. So lemon balm, when I give these out to kids too, they tend to really rub it and smell it and get it all kind of brownish. What I say to kids, if they love it that much, take some home, wrap some wet paper towel at the bottom, then stick it in some water, wait a couple of weeks, and then you'll see some roots growing, and then stick it in a pot. Putting it in the garden, you will find it takes over. So this time of year, I cut it right back to the base, to the roots. Like I have nothing growing up top. And then we dry it like this in the shed, and then we can make tea from it. So lemon balm is also good to have in your garden, and you probably still find it this time of year.
Great. Yeah, lemon balm, so nice. And as we've done in classes before, I would say when I use it the most is as an alternative to mint tea or with mint, a lemon balm tea, again, with a little honey. I like it cold though. So steeping it and letting it cool. And it can also, you could throw that into a salad similar to mint, fresh though. I wouldn't cook the lemon balm. So that one you can just cut into strips and add into like a nice salad. I do a salad with like grapefruit and fennel actually. And then you throw in lemon balm with that. And it's nice because yeah, in the summer we have so much of it. It is known for really being helpful if you're feeling a bit anxious or, you know, you've got some fear coming in. It's really good for helping us to just feel a bit more calm. As we refer to in herbal medicine, it's like a carminative. It helps you feel to make you just feel a little calmer, which is really nice.
And when we grow it in the school garden at the one school, we have it growing beside lavender. We have it growing beside the sage. So I actually call it my patch of calm. And I'll get the kids to put their whole faces in it. And they just love that. All right, so the next one is oregano. So the oregano I have here, you can tell still has these purple flowers on it. And this is a bunch that we harvested in the summer. And when the plant produces these purple flowers, that's your cue to cut it back and dry it. So we hung it upside down like this in the shed. You can see a little bit of the red string hanging there. And a bunch this size could probably last a family the whole year. It's awesome. So all these plants, again, are perennials. That means they grow back year after year. Oregano comes in different varieties too. You can even get like what's called a Greek oregano. So the leaves are a bit thicker, a bit fuzzier, and really fun to rub and smell. But again, this one, if you have it growing really tall right now, I would go out there and cut it back hang it to dry somewhere in a cool, dry place, and then it's ready to go. And don't worry if it looks like it's dead again. If you cut it right back, you'll start to see the little leaves coming up in the spring, and it'll grow back just fine by the summer. And be careful because it can take over as well. It's a really good spreading out plant. Oregano.
I feel that oregano is actually one of the best dried herbs. So it does so well when you have it fresh as well. You can add it to things. But when it's dried, it's so nice to have through the winter. I use it a lot if I make a pizza. I'll crumple it on just before I put it in the oven. Or if I'm doing something like a tomato sauce, it goes really well when you cook it in with the onions. It brings out so many nice flavors. And in terms of herbal medicine, I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of oregano oil. So this is a little dropper of oregano oil, and it is a very, very strong scent. So this is something, some people might drop it into their mouth, but it almost burns, it's so strong. So Barb actually recommended to me that she used to do with her kids is putting it right on your feet, because the thing with an oil like this is our body can absorb it very well from our skin as well. So she said she puts it on her feet, her kids' feet, and then then you go to bed. And this is really helpful if you're starting to feel sick at all. This is considered one of the best kind of immune fighting herbs.
Nice. Yeah, especially if you've got young kids at home, toddlers, they're not ready to take stuff orally yet. Putting it on their feet, giving them a nice bath, and then rubbing it on their feet when they're going to bed, putting some socks on, it'll help them fight that flu a lot faster. So the last one we have today is probably the tiniest one, and that's thyme, tiny thyme. Again, another woody Mediterranean plant, another perennial. Comes in a lot of different varieties. We can get lemon thyme. You can get ones that they all flower. And this time of year, yeah, cut it back, but be careful, don't cut it back too much because you'll tend to kill it off if you do. Another really cool thing to do if you're building gardens or you're planning to do something in the spring, and you want to have something on the ground for a ground cover, is you can plant creeping thyme in between paving stones, and it's really, really lovely to walk on with your bare feet in the summer. So I've had that in some of my gardens before. It's really great because it's kind of on the low maintenance side of the plants. You don't have to worry about it too much. It can tolerate drought. It does like to get really well established before you put it into something like a ground cover. But all of these herbs, I would say too, don't try to grow them from seed. If you do, you will have to wait a whole year before you even see a seedling. So start any of these as an established smaller plant from your garden store. Transplant those in. Unless you're going to be with your students for more than a year, you're going to be investing a lot of time waiting for any of these herbs to start growing from seeds. So that was the last thing I was going to say about the gardening part of the herbs. And I'll just let Rebecca finish up.
All right. Yeah, thyme, such a great herb. I'm sure some of you have seen that before around holidays. We often use it in our stuffing. It's often used alongside meat. So you can sometimes take it and put it into like almost like a little bouquet. You can put that into like a soup stock. It can get added into your stuffing. I love just putting sprigs of it in with any meat that I'm cooking. It goes along very well with meat. And thyme is considered an antiseptic, which means it's really good for cleaning. So if you use like a natural toothpaste or a mouthwash, that's often thyme will be included in that because it's really good at just cleaning everything out.
Nice. Wow. So we hope you learned a few things with these first tutorial that we gave. The big thing is just give it a try. Give any of these plants a try in your garden. I would say if you want the easiest thing to try, start with the lemon balm, but maybe start it in a pot. Putting it in your garden will mean it'll spread. All of the gardens that we've had it in, the plant will get very, very big. And again, it's prolific. It's very tolerant to all kinds of weather conditions. And the kids love it probably the most. And it's great because again, it does that calming and relieving of anxiety thing to talk about. So we hope you enjoyed this. If you have any feedback, please let us know, including what else you'd like to learn, including ways that you want to experience your garden by looking at these videos, looking at some cue cards. We hope you go outside and try to find these in your own space. So thanks very much for tuning in, and we hope to actually see you in person soon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.